Hello, and welcome back to another episode of our podcast, Boss Ravioli Queens. We are Boss Lady Amy,
Nick Holy Ravioli,
and Jasmine the Queen.
And we are three very real caregivers who decided we are going to spill all the ravioli on trending topics, healthcare, and so much more.
We've decided that we're going to cover a non-healthcare topic every other week as a form of self-care. After all, we live and breathe our jobs. Don't worry, we'll still have plenty of ravioli to spill.
We can't talk about work all the time. Sometimes we gotta be Cheerios because normally we're Fruit Loops.
On that note, let's
get
messy. Warning, this podcast includes profane language, crude humor, mature subjects, and possible talk of bodily fluids. This may not be suitable for listeners under the age of 18. This episode is called I Don't Feel Safe. In this one, we will be talking a little bit about police brutality and some other things going on in the world with the police officers and everything. So sit down, put your headphones in, maybe you're driving in your car, stop and grab your coffee and get your donuts and get ready for this one.
We're talking about donuts. Relevant, because cops eat donuts.
That was the joke, Amy. That was the joke.
It's relevant.
That was the whole joke. That's why I said it. Anywho, let's get into it. So I just want to kind of reiterate about, honestly, what's going on in the world with cops right now. How I feel like a lot of people nowadays don't really feel safe at all with the cops around. Like, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of times when I'm driving and I see a cop, or if I'm walking somewhere and I see a cop, like, I don't feel like they're there to protect and serve really anymore.
No.
Most of the times I'm like scared. I'm like thinking, oh, are they gonna stop me for some stupid reason, or are they gonna come talk to me for some dumb reason, thinking I'm like a suspect in something that I had literally nothing to do with. Like, I don't know. That's literally what I think about. I don't think about when I see them that, oh, great, they're here or whatever. That means, like, you know, they're being vigilant and making sure we're safe, you know? Like, that's literally not my train of thought when I see police officers anymore, which is really sad because they should be around to, like, serve us as a community.
So I have a little short story about that, actually, where I was directly affected by, it was obviously not police brutality, but it was not fun. So this was when I was like 16, I was driving with my parents to choir practice, and my dad had a rusted out Toyota Celica. It was supposed to be white, but we didn't have a lot of money, and so it was, like, mainly brown from rust. Okay. And it honestly was not, like, the car itself, it looked horrible, but, I mean, there was nothing suspicious. Like, my dad wasn't driving, like, crazy or anything or whatever. And so we were literally just going to choir practice, and this officer pulls us over, and he was like, your sticker's expired. And my dad was like, no. He was like, I have until the end of the month, like, to get it changed or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he was like, it's still good through the month. I just have to get it before January because this was in December. And the cop was like, oh, no. He was like, there's a new policy. You have to get it changed by the first of the month that it's due. No, and my dad was like, no, that's not true. So the guy asked us to...
Otherwise, it would literally say, oh, you have to get it changed, like, December 1st, right?
Right. So the guy asked us... Well, first it was my dad. First, he had asked my dad to step out of the vehicle, and they, like, had him, like... they, like, frisked him or whatever. Like, he was, like, standing out by the hood of the car. And then eventually they asked my mom to get out, and then they asked me to get out. And they made my parents wait by the hood of the car, and then they brought me around to the back. And they, like, made sure that we were, like, clearly separated. Mm-hmm. And then they were asking me, they were like, do you know these people? And I was like, yeah, these are my parents. And they're like, well... You know, my parents are pretty old. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm in my 20s and my dad is in his 70s. Or almost 80, I mean, and my mom is in her 70s. Like, they had me when they were much, much older. And so, a lot of the times they were mistaken for, like, my grandparents, whatever. And so the officer was like, well, they seem really old. Like, are you sure you know them? He asked me, like, a bunch of times, like, are you sure these are your parents? And then he asked me, he was like, are you lying to cover for them? He was like, you need to tell us, like, if you're lying. And I was like, no. I was like, look, I'm 16. These are my parents. And so then they called for backup. And then they had more squad cars come out. And they literally called in, like, the K9 unit. And they had the car, like, searched or whatever. And then I had a mint in, my mom had literally given me a mint on the ride to choir practice. And it was, like, one of those, like, lifesaver mint things, whatever. And the package had, like, some white powder left in it.
Oh, you're not telling me what I think you're telling me.
I'm telling you what yes.
You have got to be kidding me.
So they, like, called in the, drug dogs or whatever, and they had, like, the dogs go around the car and sniff the car and whatever. And so, like, these police officers, now there's, like, a good, I don't know, probably, like, 4 or 5 more, like, police officers there, along with the 2 that had originally stopped us. And again, there's one standing in between me and my parents. They had let me finally go back over, like, from the trunk to the hood, so I was allowed to stand with them. But I still had to be separated. So there's one police officer with my parents, and then there's one with me. So we're, like, off to the side now, watching them go into the car. They're, like, completely gloved up. They've got, like, tweezers. And the guy picks up the mint package with the tweezers, and he was like, I found something. And he comes over to my mom, and he was like, do you want to tell me what this is? And she was like, that's a mint. Like, that's literally a mint wrapper. And he was like, why is it white? Like, why does it have white powder?
Have you never seen a Lifesavers mint?
And she was like, because it was a white mint? And he was like, well, that's weird because normally mints are green.
No, they're not.
What is wrong with... Oh, okay.
And she was like,
Okay.
she was like, well, this one was white.
No, this wasn't police brutality, but definitely police harassment.
Yeah,
Yo.
so then he literally sticks his finger into the package, rubs some of it on his gums.
Because that's legal.
Yeah, what if it was drugs?
Yeah, and then he
he's
goes,
breaking the law.
well, this was the best part. He goes, tastes like mint. So then my mom's like, yeah, because it was a mint. And he was like, well, I'm still going to have the lab examine it just to be sure. So then he
you literally... What the fuck?
So then he literally puts it into an evidence bag and hands it off and is like, make sure that gets to the lab. And then they were like, well, you folks are free to go. We didn't find anything. They were like, make sure to get that sticker changed. Have a great night. And then we went to choir practice.
The fuck?
Cannot.
So I truly feel like we were pulled over because of how the car looked, and it was...
is.
Well, right.
For sure is.
Right.
I don't know about any of you guys out there, but, like, I've had bad cars before, and I've been pulled over way more often in an ugly-looking car than in, like, a nicer, newer car. Now that I have, like, a nicer, newer car, I don't get pulled over like I used to when I had, like, rusty cars or, like, older vehicles.
And, yeah, it was horrible. Like... So many people told us to file a complaint with the city, but we were like, why? Nothing's going to change.
No,
what is it going to do?
Change.
And then, because my parents had been asking, like, who's your supervisor? And they were telling us, like, it doesn't matter. And so I thought about calling to see, like, maybe I can file a complaint with the supervisor or whatever. But I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, like, the supervisor is probably going to be the one sweeping it under the rug. You know?
Probably.
And also, I do believe, like, legally, if you ask for their badge number, they have to give it to you.
Oh, yeah, they were... Obviously, I'm still here. So, like, I, wasn't, like, harassed physically, but they for sure were not being nice.
Right.
No.
Like, yeah, that was I don't know. So like, I don't really have a great experience with the police.
I honestly don't either. So,
Samesies.
this is a little traumatic, but, so there was a time when I was still trying to like kind of work things out with like my ex-husband.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And, basically we were like kind of separated. We had like our own apartments and stuff or whatever, but since we were still trying to work things out a little bit, I did end up trying to visit him for like the weekend. We initially went out, like, tried to get some drinks and stuff. I didn't really drink because I wasn't in the mood for it. He drank, though, or whatever. I drove home. Got to the house, and I had my new puppy with at the time. He said it was fine. She ended up having, like, just a small accident on the floor, cleaned it up or whatever, but in his drunken stupor, he just got super fucking mad about it and basically flew off the handle or whatever and told me to like get out of his house. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll leave. Wasn't gonna try to like, like make anything worse or whatever. Went to go grab my keys. Didn't remember exactly where I set them down. Saw them on the coffee table in the living room or whatever, and he's like, I'll get him for you. And like, with him being drunk and stuff, I didn't really trust him. I didn't want to get like locked out of the house without my car keys.
Right.
So I'm like, I got it, and I went to like go grab them or whatever, and as I went to grab them, he literally grabbed me by like the back of my shirt and threw me across the kitchen. And at that point I'm like, oh my god, okay. So
like, it's getting real.
Yeah, so basically scrambled to my feet. I was able to scoop up my keys and my dog. And then after he did that and already told me he wanted me to leave and I was trying to go for the door, then he tries to block me from leaving.
Of course.
So at that point, he tries to come at me. I ended up kicking him. He fell over. Luckily, I was able to get out the door. Basically chucked my poor dog in the car.
Oh.
Got in the car myself or whatever. Didn't have really enough time to like lock my doors or anything before he tried to punch out my headlights and open my passenger door and punch me in the face.
Oh my god.
So, luckily I was able to kind of tear out of there. I backed up the car, even with like the passenger side open. He fell over again.
Jesus.
But, didn't really hurt him or anything, like not really purposely, just kind of like self-preservation, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up just going to my mom's. She lived not too far from where he was living. And I was driving down the road. Apparently he had like the audacity to like call the police on me or whatever and saying that I abused him. So cop pulled me over, told me like one of my taillights was out or whatever, because they do that thing or whatever to like have some sort of an excuse because they don't know how the person in the car is going to be when they get called about like some sort of domestic situation. So I get that, whatever. And I was like worried. I was like almost mad because I'm like, I just literally had this car like oil changed and like looked at and stuff already. I'm like, my taillight better not be the fuck out. Right. So, it was just like, no, you got called about like domestic situation, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And the cop basically asked me if I came from there, and I'm like, yes, at the time it was like technically my husband. So I said, yeah, I came from my husband's. We were trying to work things out. He wanted me to leave. He was super drunk, turned into like a whole thing or whatever. So my goal was just to leave. And he basically lied to the cop and said I was drinking all night and that I was like super, super drunk. So he was trying to get me basically arrested. Cop told me, asked me to do a breathalyzer. I agreed to it because I wasn't drinking, and he gave me the breathalyzer. I blew zeros.
Right.
Because I was completely sober, and I'm like, have you been to the house already? Like, I know he's plastered. And the cop was actually surprised when I blew zeros. And and for a little background or whatever, I'm not completely white either, so.
Uh-huh.
So this makes it a little weirder. And he's like, oh, well, why did you leave the house then? And I'm like, because
he was literally punching you.
Because he was like, he punched me and like threw me across the kitchen and stuff. And I'm like, I literally looked the cop in the face and I'm like, was I supposed to stay there and get beat up? And he's like, well, no. And I'm like, well, then that's why I left a bad situation. And they still asked me to step out of the car and arrested me. And took me to jail. Had to call my mom to come get me out of jail.
God.
For literally no reason. I was in a situation that I didn't even start. And I was completely sober and he was not.
What were
And they still arrested me.
What?
Yep, they still arrested me for it and everything.
What did they charge you for?
They just charged with like a basic domestic or whatever. And honestly, the judge basically, I think, ended up throwing out the case anyway because I was assigned a court date originally, and then they just threw out the case and I didn't have to be there, so.
So basically, y'all, this is why I
But
chose not to go to the cops.
But unfortunately, now because of that, it is still somewhere on my record as a domestic. Which, if it evolved anywhere farther than that, could have literally cost me my whole healthcare career.
Yeah. Yep. Because caregiver background checks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't be involved in anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Literally nothing.
And initially, I didn't want to be involved in that at all. I was literally just trying to fix a marriage that obviously was never going to work. Mm-hmm. Which now we're officially divorced, so doesn't work. So no worries there.
Yay! Mazel tov for the divorce.
Mazel tov.
Shalom. Not trying to offend anybody, please don't. So, getting back on track from Mazel Tov and Shalom. So, we wanted to kind of cover some police brutality and wrongful death by cop and all that stuff. So, what better situation to talk about than George Floyd?
Mm-hmm.
Probably one of the biggest stories out there.
Since what, Rodney King?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I do want to point out, first and foremost, that whether he was a criminal or not, cops are not meant to be the judge, jury, and executioner. They're literally meant to go and arrest the person and bring them into custody.
Right.
So whatever George Floyd was accused of, I believe it was using a counterfeit bill. I'm pretty sure that was what it was.
That was what the story
Then
was.
I had all the, we had all of the keyboard warriors out there. Oh, well, he was a drug addict. He's a criminal. He broke into this girl's house and did this and that and da-da-da-da-da.
Well, that's not the point, though.
That's not the point. The point is that Derek Chauvin and the two other police officers that didn't stop him from doing these things literally allowed him to murder George Floyd. Since when is that legal? Oh, wait, I forgot. It's only legal when cops do it.
It's like, even if he did all those things, like, the whole goal for the police is to, like, prove that this is happening, arrest this person, give them this proper trial to where they decide what the consequences are going to be.
Right. And
not to basically, like, detain somebody and, like, basically choke them out when they're not even fighting you back.
If someone says, I can't breathe, wouldn't you think you would get the fuck off them?
Right.
There are ways to restrain people without cutting off airways.
Plus they had plenty of other police officers and backup there, and he was one man.
Well, right, and there's no way he was gonna get up and start causing a ruckus when he was literally being pinned down.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Like, I just don't understand why that happens, to be honest. Like, it.
And the sad thing about it is that it happens all the time, but cases like that are the ones that get publicized because it's death by cop.
Right.
Right.
And also, the media does, like, play people against each other very much so.
Absolutely.
Very much so. But at the end of the day,
because that's what gets their ratings, to be honest.
it is. They have to be controversial. But at the end of the day, cops are literally, it's in the, like, their fucking job duties, protect and serve. I don't feel protected ever. Literally, I'll be driving down the road and a cop will pull up behind me. Oh, fuck. Am I doing something wrong?
Literally.
Like, that's what I worry about.
That.
I should feel safe when a cop pulls up behind me.
Right.
Like, I shouldn't have to worry about, oh, am I going 1 mile per hour over the speed limit? Or, you know, something of that matter. Yeah, so...
And, like, the racial profiling, I mean,
Yes.
it's horrible.
Yes, and it's awful that people of color have to go through that because literally everybody that I know breathes oxygen and bleeds red blood. So...
Right. Well, and, like, you know, the story that I had told before, sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I was anything other than white.
Oh, girl, I don't even want to think about it.
Like, I really feel that the color of my skin saved me that day from being detained, like, physically harassed.
Physically abused.
Right.
I mean, I've definitely had my fair share of, like, racial profiling. Probably not as bad as most because I'm very light-skinned, but still, like, you catch it.
Icky. Well, right, and, like, the trauma, like, the things that does to you. Like, I literally, a routine traffic stop, like, my heart starts beating so fast. Like, every single time, no matter what it is, even if I know I was going, you know, 5 over or whatever, like, I'm still terrified ever since that happened.
Because you don't know, like, what they're gonna do. Like, is it just going to be a routine like, oh, you were speeding, I'm going to give you a ticket thing? Or is it going to turn into something else where they're just going to try to claim that you've been drinking? Or they're going to try to claim that you've been doing this or that you've been doing that or something else is worse. Like, so they can try to ticket you for either more stuff or they can find a way to just detain you completely.
Right, and, like, make false accusations.
Right.
So often that happens, and, like, look, I know not all cops are bad, but there are quite a few of them that are. And, speaking from not personal experience, but, like, secondhand account of things, I had a friend who I think was at, like, a park, and the cops pulled him over as he was pulling into said park. He had just, like, deep cleaned his car the previous day, like, got it washed on the outside and then shop vac the inside, like, cleaned it up really, really well, like, spotless. And he was on probation, so obviously the cops knew who he was.
Obviously.
And, they knew that he liked to partake in smoking the ganja. So...
Okay. So they were literally trying to catch
they
him
planted they planted fucking seeds in his car.
What?
Pulled out a little baggie with seeds in it. Number one, he was on probation and he never smoked in his car while on probation anyways. Look, some of my friends were really dumb at that age, but he was actually rather smart for someone on probation.
Right.
So, yeah, it was just nuts. Like,
How do they even, like, manage that? I don't...
It's in the pocket. They lean over to, like, grab something, pull it out of their pocket, throw it in, and pull it right back out.
Jesus.
Or they simply leave it in their pocket, they're bent over, and they reach their hand in their pocket, pull it out as they're getting back out of the car, like, standing up straight. It's not all that hard to do, really.
So they just wanted to catch him on something, because they knew who he was.
Yes.
So I just want to relate this to, like, healthcare for just a second. So, with all the police brutality that's around or whatever, like, most of it happens because police honestly just get their feelings hurt about...
Or they're uneducated.
They're uneducated, or they get their feelings hurt by, like, maybe somebody at a traffic stop that just doesn't want to cooperate with them because they know the law and they know what the cops can and can't do or whatever, or they get butthurt because somebody refuses certain things or whatever,
Or a civilian
whatever.
knows the law better than they do.
Yeah. like stuff like that. Or, but like I want to relate it to healthcare a little bit because, I mean, for healthcare workers, we get verbally, physically, emotionally abused all the time, and then continue to protect and care for these people. Why can't the cops do that then?
Right.
Like,
Right.
what if we can manage being basically kicked or slapped or harassed or
Spit
been
on.
Threatened.
called fat, called names? Like, why is it so hard for police officers in their job, in their line of duty, to be like, suck those feelings back and be like, we're here for the people, whether they want the help or not.
Right. I also think, too, since we're, kind of relating this to healthcare a little bit, it's pretty ridiculous when you call 911 for one of your residents and you clearly explain this is a group home and they still send a police officer. Like, I've had, 3 police officers be sent before for someone who had a fall. Like, why?
I believe that's... Oh, for a fall? Wait, or not somebody, called them or something?
No, like a fall or a seizure or things like that.
I think that's their job to be there sometimes.
Well,
It's routine process.
It is.
Yeah.
It's routine.
They always have to work with, paramedics and fire department.
But I think it's ridiculous when, I understand when it's for something that's not within a group home, but, when it's in a group home, it's different.
And also, I would like to bring up the fact that sometimes police can agitate the residents if they're behavioral.
Right. Well, and I've literally asked them before. I have asked them straight out, literally, what are you doing here? I'm like, the fire department's already here. The paramedics are already here. We have way too many people in this house. Why are you here? Please leave. And they have literally said, oh, it's protocol. There are certain calls we get that we have to respond to.
I can get that it's protocol, but at the same time, if they're not necessarily, needed in the building, I don't know why they're in the building. Why can't you be
waiting outside.
Right.
If it's one thing if this is, just a normal house, whatever, it's not a group home, that is understandable. But when I have clearly explained to the dispatcher, this is a group home, I'm a staff, there's no family members here that are going to be freaking out. I already know what to do. I already know what's going on. I'm calm. Literally, this person just needs to be transported to the hospital. Why? Why do we need police there?
Yeah, they
make
should be
it worse.
They should be standby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I get why they're there because it's almost
Well, and
they have to kind of investigate
they're
anything
so
and
intimidating
assess
sometimes.
the situation.
Oh, I know.
And sometimes they're very rude to you, and you're literally just trying to.
I got a story.
No, I know you do.
We're literally just trying to help the paramedics figure out what happened, and they're standing there in that stance, with their arms crossed. What are you doing? You are in my house right now.
Right.
This is my shift. You're in my house now.
And that's another thing that we can relate to healthcare or whatever. When we're healthcare workers, our body language says a lot, and it says a lot to a lot of residents, especially ones that can be agitated. So, I don't know why, I get why police have to be intimidating sometimes, but that's for criminal activity.
Right. Hardened criminals.
They need to be they should still be family friendly and inviting.
Literally. Even if there are not children present, just because you pull me over doesn't mean that you have to try and intimidate me from the get-go.
Right.
Or try and be a hard ass right from the get-go.
Right.
I'm a person, you're a person. Just because you have a badge and a gun doesn't make me any less than you.
It's if I really wanted to, I could go to school for law enforcement and I can just, become a cop too. But,
Would never.
Right.
I would never want to.
Right.
That's not something I enjoy doing.
Before you tell your story, recently, well, not recently, but a year ago now, I guess, one of my residents had a seizure that lasted for 10 minutes. And, of course, we
that's
called
a long
911. Right. And so, the cops, I think, 3 or 4 cops responded along with, 6 guys from the fire department. So we had, I don't know, 10, 9 or 10 people from, in a uniform one way or another in the living room. And, like, one of the residents comes out who has, like, the cognitive abilities of, like, a 6-year-old. And she's like, hi. Like, that's her thing. She loves to, like, be all excited and be like, hi, honey, hi. That's her thing. And they were like, ma'am, you need to stay back. And I was like,
okay, I feel
you just
like,
called her ma'am? I was like,
I
she
feel
does
like
not understand
police,
that.
I feel like police need to be a little more educated on healthcare for sure.
Like, she does, I'm like,
especially if they're going to be
So many
working with
things to
healthcare
say.
people.
you cannot, no, like, she doesn't understand what you just said. Stay back means nothing to her. You're putting your hand out, she's probably going to shake it.
Right.
Like, I was
and
like...
then how do you know that he wouldn't take that as a threat?
Right.
Like,
what, are you going to pull a gun on 80-year-old, 6-year-old?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I was like, okay, go back in your room. I was like, look, the most I can do is tell her to go back into her room. But I was like, if she comes out, like, this is still her house. I don't care if you're here. She lives here. Like, goodbye. Please leave. Like, that... Earlier, when I was saying, like, I've asked police officers to leave the house before, that's one of the examples I was talking about. I asked them, I was like...
because it makes them anxious.
Yeah, I was like, do you really have to be here? I was like, the lady who had the seizure, she's all loaded up. She's being transported. Like, can you please go?
I can think of somebody or whatever, a resident that I know that freaks out at the fire alarm. I can imagine if he had all the people in the house,
No.
he would flip out,
Yeah.
probably.
No. Mm-mm.
All right, Miss Ravioli, what's your story?
I already know
Buckle
this
up,
story.
folks. So, anyways,
Click it or tick.
are you a cop?
I could be.
Nowadays, it's
No, I absolutely would never be a cop.
Nowadays, it's more like ticket, and you get a ticket, and you get a ticket.
We're Oprah out here.
Ticket, even though I don't know if you clicked it.
Okay, story time. So I had this one resident who was in a motorized wheelchair. You know where I'm going with this already.
We sure do.
So said resident likes to tool around town in wheelchair, okay? It's a power wheelchair, whatever. Do you, boo-boo, just don't let your wheelchair die. So, I hate this story so much. I'm sorry. So, I get a call from dispatch. Did not know it was from dispatch, but I was the lucky winner that got to answer the phone call because my coworker was busy with one of the other residents. So I answer the phone and they're like, hey, this is dispatch, or so-and-so with dispatch. We have an officer dispatched out with one of your residents right now by this name, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, what happened? Is said resident okay? And she was like, well, he tipped out of... she made it sound like he actually physically fell out of his wheelchair. Was not the case. Far from it, as a matter of fact. So, basically, I played telephone, like the old child's game telephone, with this dispatcher who had just played telephone with said police officer. So, seeing as she made it sound like he literally fell out of his wheelchair, like his wheelchair fell on top of him or something, like there's seatbelts in the wheelchair, so buckled in. But I had forgotten to tell her that he was on a blood thinner. So, for those of you that don't know, blood thinners cause you to bruise very easily and also can cause internal bleeding. Mm-hmm. It's much easier for you to get internal bleeding if you're on a blood thinner. So, I called dispatch back and got a dude this time, and he was like, I'll relay he said that the officer was on a phone call and he would take my number, give it to the officer as soon as he was available. Okay, cool, sounds great. Officer calls house. Says that he left the call like 10 minutes ago already, and I was like, wow, that was fast. You got him back in his chair that fast? I mean, this is like a big guy, dude. Big guy.
And a heavy chair.
Heavy, not just The chair's not the only heavy thing, okay? We're just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy. So he was like, well, not me, but the bystanders. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, he's on blood thinner, so if, like, he fell out of his chair, or his chair fell on top of him, like, y'all have been telling me, which, again, was not fucking accurate at all, by any means. Do you want to know what actually happened?
Yes.
He got stuck in a fucking rut. There was no fall.
So he just got stuck. He didn't even fall at all.
Literally.
So he got stuck and called 911 on himself?
No, the innocent bystanders called 911.
Oh my god.
Oh.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Well, if they were gonna help him out anyway, and the cop didn't do shit,
Right.
then why didn't
Okay.
they just help him out of the?
Okay, but here's where the story gets really icky. Okay, just icky. So I tell the officer, well, hey, he's on blood thinners, so he really should go get seen at the ER. I was like, dude's his own guardian, so I can't make him, but needs to be informed, basically. Could have internal bleeding if this fall happened. And the cop was like, so you're telling me that I have to go back out and search for this guy, da-da-da, like, just goes off on me. And I was like, I apologize. That is my fault for not telling dispatch that literally 3 minutes ago when I talked to them the first time. So sorry. Like, fuck, I am only human, man. Like, come on.
Well, and not only that, but most dispatchers are also typically, like, emergency techs in the field. So most of them should know that. Most of them are smart enough to know what's your medical history, what medications are you on.
Right.
Oh, you're on blood thinners. Oh, go get checked out. Like, that wasn't your fault.
No, it wasn't.
And also, this person, their own guardian, they should also be able to say that.
Isn't it usually protocol for police to ask about ambulance and being checked out anyway?
Yeah.
Well, you see, the officer did ask if said person wanted an ambulance, and said person refused.
Okay.
But, again, because said person didn't actually fall!
Right.
But most of the time, they're like, oh, are you sure? Do you, is there any reason that this could have happened? Is there any reason you need to be seen? Like, most of the time, they push a little harder.
Yeah, well, this guy did not. Dude's a total dickweed. Okay, like, I'm still on the phone with him, and I'm like, I just finished, like, basically professionally bitching at him. Like, I apologize, I'm so sorry, da-da-da-da. And he's like, so you're telling me that I have to go out? And I was like, no, you don't. He's like 5 blocks away from the house. Calm down. Like, holy fuck. So then he's like, well, how far away? And I'm like, I just told you it's like 5 blocks, sir. He will be home in 5 minutes. He's in a power chair that has more than just the turtle mode. So he can go pretty quick. And he was like, well, what's your name? And what's the address of the house? And I was like, oh, well, my name is, and then I even spelled out my last name. I was like, yeah, emphasis, sir. And, yeah, that was that. But seriously, what a fucking dickhead. I cannot.
I would have even taken the time to have been like, capital N, lowercase I.
Don't forget, bitch, there's no H in my name, okay? I can't, though. Like, why do you have to be condescending and douchey to someone that you don't know that is a caregiver for a person that is a pain in the fucking ass?
Plus, it was later at the day. Let's be honest. He had nothing else better to do.
Right. Go sit at fucking Dunkin' Donuts and Speed Trap? Okay, have fun.
Right.
Or park next to one of his cops.
So you're gonna make me go and search for him? Well, it wouldn't take you long. There's one road.
Right.
Well, and also, too, like, we're humans. Like, we're just normal people who both happen to be at work. Like, can you not understand we're both of us are just trying to do our jobs?
I'm sorry, you never forget anything?
Right.
Jesus, fuck. Oh, God. I wanted to punch him through the phone. I really did. And
Sometimes
normally,
I wish
they would
that
arrest you, and
technology
then you'd get
existed.
charged and put in jail.
not if it was through the phone.
Wouldn't it be
find me.
grand if that
Right.
technology existed?
Ugh.
Punching through the phone.
Seriously, though, I would do it so often.
I don't know. Could you be held responsible for punching someone through the phone? Could you be arrested?
I'm sure they'd find a way.
I'll punch you with my
Probably.
words.
Literally. Literally.
But no, seriously though, like, we're all human beings, and cops are human beings too, and the sooner that everybody, including the cops themselves, realize that, the better off society will be.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, again, you don't know a person's situation, you don't know what they've been through, are currently going through, so on and so forth. Again, our current running theme, don't be a dick.
Literally. Any other closing thoughts?
No. I think Nicole Ravioli said it all.
Okay.
Don't be a dick.
Time to wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Bye.
This has been the Boss Ravioli Queens podcast with your hosts, Boss Lady Amy,
Nicole Ravioli.
And Jasmine the Queen.
Thank you so much for spilling your ravioli with us.
Don't worry, we'll serve you more next time. Until next time, go wash your ass.